Well, the newest information that we have to light has been the BBC Panorama investigation that showed new videos of Princess Latifa since her abduction back in 2018. We have not had information about what she has felt about the conditions of her situation. And now what we have is that she has talked on camera about her being held against her will in a villa and the conditions in which she was actually abducted. Now, we had information from before regarding the abduction itself, as well as the Princess Haya, her stepmother, who had a high-profile divorce case against the ruler of Dubai, where the allegations about her being forced against her will was also brought up in the court as well. So we have been incredibly concerned about the abduction of Princess Latifa, but also about the way in which she's being held captive by the ruler of Dubai.
What did that British High Court find last year in the case involving one of the Prince's wives, Latifa's stepmother? And do you think that jeopardised Princess Latifa's safety?
The British High Court found that on the balance of probabilities, the allegations by Princess Haya against her former husband was that the ruler of Dubai had been involved in the abduction of both his daughters, Princess Shamsa, who was actually abducted back in 2000 from the UK, as well as abduction of Princess Latifa in 2018, and that there were serious allegations about them both being held against their will, as well as allegations of Shamsa in particular facing torture and ill treatment during her detention. What we have been calling for is that for the ruler of Dubai to free both of his daughters and allow them to leave the country if they so wish, and an investigation conducted by the UAE authorities into the abductions and the allegations of ill treatment.
Of course, these fresh calls for international action are also to establish Latifa's current whereabouts. How can the UN help in this case?
The UN can call for the release of both of these sisters, but also to ensure that they're able to leave their country and to be able to speak more freely about what is actually happening to them. What we've seen in the past is that following her abduction in 2018, we did not know if she was alive. And then what we saw was that the authorities were willing to issue photos of her and to indicate that she was indeed alive and well. But what they were claiming was that they had brought her back for her own protection when actually it was an abduction, and that they claimed that she was well, which we were not able to hear from her herself. What we want to see is that both sisters are able to leave the country and talk about and be able to speak about their own well-being without being under coercion or duress. Currently, that circumstance is not freely available. If you go to the UAE now and be able to speak to both of the sisters, it will be under conditions in which the UAE authorities will be there and will be able to potentially, put them under duress, making it more difficult for them to really speak freely about their conditions.
Well, the UAE authorities seem to be wanting to show they're taking steps on women's rights. How effective have the laws they've brought about been?
The UAE has been making some superficial reforms that basically have otherwise lended them to a lot of criticism regarding laws that had allowed for men to punish their wives and children in a disciplinary manner, and that was considered completely legal. That has since been removed in 2016. They've also said that they're removing provisions that had allowed for mitigating sentences in situations of honor killings. We have yet to see what that really means in the law. But the law itself allows for guardianship of women, in which women need guardian permission in order to marry. They also owe their husbands obedience in a number of different ways. All of that is still there. They also published a domestic violence law that would allow for more protections for women fleeing domestic violence. But the same law defines domestic violence as one which exceeds guardianship. So the idea that men are guardians of women is still very much central to the law itself, which reinforces both discrimination against women, but also facilitates violence against women.
And tell us a bit more about what the UK has had to say about this case and whether this pressure might work for the girls to be freed.
While the British High Court had come out to say that they believed that the two women were abducted, we did not see much from the UK government in that regard. We've now seen the Foreign Secretary say that people would want to see the women are alive and well, but that is not the same thing as calling for their release. And we want to see the UK government, a government which was, had a woman actually abducted from the country of the UK, as well as other members of the international community really coming forward and calling for the release of these two women. We've seen other governments calling for release of people who are arbitrarily detained, and this is no different. While this is considered to be a situation of a family dispute, these are essentially two women being held against their will by a father who happens to be one of the most powerful men in the country and was involved in actually coordinating an international abduction of his daughters back to his country. We need to see the international community come through and call for their release.
A worrying situation for these women indeed. Rothna and Begum, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.